Yeah, I still think it's funny. Let me just welcome to GraceLife.tv El Paso campus. Glad to have you with us today. Welcome as well to all you who are viewing us online, all over the United States as well as around the world. This is actually week number 3 of our series called Let's Get Selfish, because we're talking about being selfish. We're going to be talking about being selfish. In this series, what we're really talking about is one of the most widely misunderstood, in my opinion, and grossly misconstrued subjects in the religious world especially, and probably in the world as well. But it's the subject of forgiveness. I know that's one of those bad subjects, one of those things you really may not want to talk about sometimes, those kind of things. But we've been discovering some really cool stuff, and we're going to really continue to discover some really cool things in this. What does it really mean to forgive? And if you do forgive, does that mean that you lose the upper hand? Because that's a lot of what many of us are afraid of, is if we forgive somebody, we're going to lose the upper hand. We want to have something over on them. So what we're doing in this series, as I said, is we're kind of getting selfish, and we're asking the question, what's in it for me? What's in it for you? What is there about forgiveness that is good for you, or that you can be selfish about? It seems to me that people today have a greater problem with the ideas and the teachings about forgiveness than probably a lot of other subjects, biblical subjects that I can think of. There's a lot of things that people have difficulty with, but forgiveness is one of those that probably is right up there kind of at the top of the list, if you know what I mean. So the most important thing that we've learned so far is that our forgiveness of others is a unilateral decision. In other words, it's a one-sided thing. It's not something that has to happen on both sides of the fence. A lot of us believe, or we like to believe, that it's something that has to happen on both sides of the fence. That our forgiveness of others is dependent on things such as, whether they have asked me for forgiveness or not, or whether or not they have shown that they are repentant in their lives, or that they have changed their ways, or even their willingness to change their ways, or committing themselves to never do it again. We like to think that it's on their side of the fence to make the first move, to make those commitments, to not do this again, to show that they've changed their lives, all those different kind of things, and then we might allow them to be forgiven. So the question is, and the most important thing about that is that since this is a unilateral decision on our part, it has to do with us, not them. As a matter of fact, those people that need our forgiveness, or we think that they should be cowing to us, that have done us wrong. We like to think that we're making them suffer by not forgiving them, but we're not. That's not the case. So it's a unilateral decision on our part. That's what the Bible tells us, is that it's only on your part. You need that we can let go of the sins of others, whether they have shown any inclination towards changing their lives or any of those kind of things. So the question is if that's what it is, if that's what forgiveness is, and that's what the Bible says forgiveness is on our part, then why would God require anything different from us? That may be a little difficult for you to grasp to begin with, but what I'm saying is that the religious world believes that in order to receive God's forgiveness, you got to have a repentant heart. You got to promise to never do it again. You got to ask forgiveness. You got to mean it. All those different kind of things. And yet, on our side of the fence, when we read about what forgiveness is towards others, it's a unilateral thing. I'm going to tell you that it's the same thing on God's side of the picture. With us and our need for forgiveness, it's a unilateral decision on His part that He has provided us with and given us His forgiveness automatically. It's not something you have to beg God for, change your life for, all those different kind of things that we like to tie onto that. And that's exactly the point, is that God doesn't require us to commit ourselves never to do it again, to change our ways, to all those different kind of things before He will forgive us. And that's why understanding what Big G grace is all about is so extremely important. So since God has already forgiven me of all of the horrendous things that I've done against Him, then what gives me the right then to withhold my forgiveness from others? Good question. As a matter of fact, Paul tells us in Ephesians 4:32, he says, "Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving each other, And just as God in Christ also has forgiven you. I think it's important, I was talking to Sheldon about this morning, I think it's important that the word order there, in my opinion, the two words also has, I just want to draw your attention to that. I think it's important that it says also has instead of has also. And what I mean is this, is that in this sense, in this way of saying it also has, means it's already something that's been done. Now, if the word order were different, that would mean that has also, meaning that, okay, if you forgive others, then God will also forgive you. We're already discovering that that's not the case. That's not what this is about. And we're going to look a little deeper into that in the next week or two. Okay. So what I want to do today is give you my definition for forgiveness again. And let's kind of go over that a little bit and see if it helps us to understand the issues that are involved here and how they affect your life, how they affect my life. Now, this definition, of course, may not be what you've always heard or been taught or even think about what forgiveness is. And it may not even make a lot of sense to begin with, but let's kind of take a look at it and see what forgiveness is and or includes. Here it is. Forgiveness is surrendering my right to hurt back, or giving up my right to hurt back. As a matter of fact, the word forgiveness in the original Greek simply means to let go of. It means to let go of, and that's important. You need to remember that. Forgiveness means in the original to let go of the sins of others. So we let go of, in that sense, surrendering my right to hurt back. That's what forgiveness is. So let's pick it apart just a little bit and see how it affects us and how it helps us understand the issues that are involved here in being able to forgive without trying to force forgetfulness, because forgiveness does not include forgetfulness. That's not part of it. That's not the deal. As a matter of fact, God has given you a memory for a reason, and it's for your own self-protection. So He doesn't expect you to forget. As a matter of fact, if there's anybody that can forget, it's only God. And the Bible tells us that He chooses not to remember rather than to forget, in that sense of the word. Okay, so the first word in this definition is the word surrender. And one of the hardest things for us to do in life, especially when someone is doing something wrong to me, or something that shouldn't have ever been done to anyone, but they've done it to me, is that we try to return the favor. We often want to return the favor. When somebody does us wrong, the first thing that crosses our mind, we want to return the favor, to pay them back for what they've done to us. Since murder is probably kind of out of the question, I think murder's sort of out of the question here. Then the next best thing would be to just hurt them real bad, maybe physically, Well, the problem with that, though, is, as you already know, is that if you hurt them back, even physically or whatever, punch them out, whatever, you know what? What's going to happen is that people see you do that, they're going to think bad about you, not about them. They're going to think, well, what a nasty guy, What a terrible feller that would knock this other guy out. I don't care what he did. He didn't deserve that, right? So revenge is one of those things that we want to take out on others. So the only real recourse we have then, because we looked at those things, we probably have already thought about those things in our life, that murder's out of the question, probably, for most of us, I hope. Tell me it's out of the question, right? Yeah, okay, well, all right. And knocking somebody off their legs is maybe kind of out of the question for, in a lot of different ways. So the next best thing then is for me to stay mad at them. Right? I'm going to stay mad at them and make them pay for what they've done. Refuse to forgive them and try to make them hurt as much as they have hurt me. Okay. So let me say right up front that one of the biggest problems with forgiveness then is that we often think we are protecting ourselves by not forgiving, by not letting go of the offenses of others. We think we are protecting ourselves. That by not forgiving them, we're somehow making them pay. But what you need to know is that that's not what it's about here. And that's not really even what happened. God actually is asking us to get selfish for a bit to get selfish for a little while, for a moment, and to remember and to realize that our unforgiveness hurts us way more than it ever hurts them. As a matter of fact, the other person may not even know we're mad at them, nor do they care. Right? If they have hurt you, they probably don't even care if you're hurt. Maybe they meant to. So if you're mad, so what? As a matter of fact, that probably brings pleasure to them if they meant to do what they did. So who's hurting here? You or them by not letting go of the sins of others? You, of course. You, of course. So we often think that we need to teach them a lesson, that somehow it's our responsibility to make sure that they never do it again to us or anyone else for that matter, you know. But the problem with that whole scenario is that God says that vengeance belongs to Him, not us. Now, notice I said vengeance because with us it is revenge. Not vengeance, it's revenge. That's what we want to get, is we want to get revenge. Check this out. Paul says in Romans 12:19, he says, never take your own, what? Revenge, because that's what it is for us. But leave room for the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance, that's different than revenge, isn't it? Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Well, who better knows how to repay those who have done you wrong than the God who created you as well as them, right? Well, not only is it impossible for you to know, in that sense of the word, what the other person's motivation is or was for whatever it was that they did to you, because maybe they didn't even mean to. Ever hurt somebody? Have you ever hurt somebody that you didn't mean to? Of course you have. Did they think you meant to? Probably. They don't know what was in your heart, do they? They think they do, and they may hold that against you from here on out. No matter how much you've asked their forgiveness, no matter how much you change you, and no matter how much you try to get close to them, they may choose then because they don't know what your motivation was. The same thing applies on our side of the fence. We don't know what their motivation was when they hurt us either, even if it does seem real clear. Okay, so the only thing that most of us believe would actually give us ultimate satisfaction in hurting another person is their death, as I said a moment ago, which means that giving up or surrendering my right to hurt back then is to allow God to exact upon the other person what only God knows will cause them to truly know what they have really done to you. Because He is the one who created them as well as He's the one who created you. So who better knows how to hurt them where they really need to be hurt, if that's the way you want to look at it, than God Himself. Okay. So, is it right then that you should feel hurt when somebody does you wrong? Is that okay? Yes. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, to pretend that you really aren't hurt is to commit intellectual suicide. To pretend that you're not hurt, and a lot of us do that, don't we? I do. I pretend, oh, no big deal. I don't care. You know. But you do. You know, you feel it. You know it. You know it. So is it okay to feel that hurt? Well, to deny that hurt is to commit intellectual suicide. So what you need to know is that surrendering my right to hurt back in no way denies the fact that I very definitely have the right to feel hurt and am suffering on account of what they did. It does hurt me, yes, and I am suffering on account of what they did. Yes, they've hurt me badly. Yes, they deserve to know what it's like to be hurt as badly as they have hurt me. They sure do. But no, you should not sell yourself short by denying the fact that they have hurt you, that you are hurt. Because to deny those feelings is like ignoring a cut, you know. Sooner or later that cut gets infected, and if you let it go long enough, it's going to get gangrenous, you're going to get gangrene in it, and you're going to lose the finger or the limb or the whatever it is, or lose your life from gangrene. Matter of fact, back during the Civil War, how most of the soldiers died, was from gangrene, not from the wound they received. Today, those wounds wouldn't have been much of a big deal. Back during the American Civil War, there was not the medical advancement that we have today, the medications that are available, so they often died from infection and turned gangrene and just killed them. Get shot in the hand, or shoot your hand off and die, literally die from it. Okay, it's been my observation that a lot of people in our world today have gradually developed what I call rhinoceros hide. That's what I call it. You develop this hide on the outside that nobody can get through. You don't allow them to hurt you, all those different kind of things. I mean, probably every person, and especially those in places of leadership, have been called everything in the book and accused of almost anything and everything that they can be accused of at one time or another. And because of the public attacks and open ridicule and scathing letters in the mail, they've had to make a decision. People in place of leadership have had to make a decision at some point in time in their life that they can either let it destroy them completely, those scathing attacks, those things that may not even necessarily be true, or they can develop a certain thickness of rhinoceros hide. And leaders often have the thickest rhinoceros hide of anyone. And it's really hard to get through to them sometimes as well, because they have developed this hide that's so thick, James told us that this would happen. He said in James chapter 3 and verse 1, he said, "Let not many of you become teachers, my brothers, knowing that as such we will incur a stricter judgment." Okay, so how many of you believe that means that God will judge you if you teach somebody something wrong? That in my place of leadership, that if I teach you something that is wrong, it will be God that judges me for that. Anybody ever been told that or think that? Do you see God listed anywhere in that verse? I don't. No. Who is it that judges you more severely? The people. Yes. I can guarantee you, after 30 years of standing in this position, I can tell you that no matter what I say or how I say it, if you want to take it wrong, you will. Not only can you, but you will. And it doesn't matter how much explanation I give. I've had people in my life, many times over, who say, "No, I know better." "Oh, you can read my heart, can you?" They think they can. That's where the judgment comes from, not from God. And so he's just saying, listen, walk into this thing with your eyes open. You know what you're getting into. If you got school teachers, you know what I'm talking about. You face that all the time, those kind of things. Yes, any places of leadership in that sense of the word. So while I have to admit that we all need a certain amount of rhinoceros hide, sure enough, and we all develop a certain thickness of rhinoceros hide, like the rhino line in the pickup. I mean, that's pretty thin, but it is protective coating, isn't it? Have you seen some of the vehicles around town that they put it on the outside of the vehicle instead of in the bed of the truck? Have you seen those? Now, I don't particularly care for it, but I can understand the idea, because if you're going to drive that thing out there in the mesquite bushes, that would be a good thing to have. I can too. You can, huh? You got rhinoceros. I bet you do have rhinoceros hide. Yeah, and so that's what they're doing. So a certain amount of rhinoceros hide is good, we all kind of need that as a self kind of protection kind of thing. But the fact is, to pretend that that we're not really hurt by what somebody else has done is a form of denial that is an outright betrayal of yourself. You are betraying yourself. As I said a moment ago, intellectual suicide, a betrayal of your own self, you inside. So not only that, but until we are willing to admit to ourselves that we've been hurt, we'll never seek a solution to the matter either. As long as we deny that we've been hurt, then we just continue to walk on and pretend like nothing ever happened, and there's not a solution that is found. We don't even look for a solution. The end result being, of course, that we continue to suffer the consequences of unresolved, secret, confidential anger and resentment. And that builds up to the point to where it becomes outright bitterness, which will absolutely, matter-of-factly, kill you physically. I've seen it happen. Now, in my opinion, this may be, this denial thing that we've been hurt, may be at least one of the reasons why men tend to be such angry people. Don't we, guys? We tend to have a lot of anger. We're good at hiding it, but it comes out, you know. And a lot of times it comes out when you least want it to or expect it to. It's because unresolved hurt builds and turns into resentment, and resentment manifests itself as anger. And we let it out on other people, on other things that aren't even related, because we're holding on to it in other areas of our life. So I'm saying to you, admit it. Yes, they've done you wrong. And yes, they've hurt you deeply. Acknowledge that, own that, even affirm that in your life and say, yes, they have hurt me deeply. Because it is then, as we admit that, it's then and only then that you'll be able to answer the very crucial question in your life, an extremely important question in your life. Once you've admitted that, then you can answer another question, a very critical question. What will I do with the hurt that they have caused me? What am I going to do with that? Well, we already talked about some of that. We'd like to go kill them, you know, knock them out. Make them hurt, all those different kind of things. But the fact is, what we do with those feelings that we have is what makes the difference between a life of slavery to that person and those feelings, or a life of freedom from the very thing that holds us in bondage to them, which is our unwillingness to let God be the avenger. We want to be the avenger. We don't want to allow God to do that. We want to take revenge on other people. But if we can surrender our right, to give up our right to hurt back to God, and say to God, listen, I've been hurt. It's bad. You know, you can sit on Daddy's lap and you can cry. It's okay. God can handle that. And I don't care how big or how old you are or how tough you are. You can still sit on Daddy's lap and let Daddy hold you and hug you and say, you know what, it's okay. I understand your hurt. I understand your anger. So that we are able then to give it up and allow Him to do what He knows best. Just tell Dad about it. He'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about it from there on. It's literally trusting God to deal with them in His way, and as we do that, we literally release them from our grasp. That's the problem, is we're holding on to them. They don't know it, nor do they care. But as long as we withhold our forgiveness, we are holding them in our grasp, and we are the prisoner, not them. We are the one that's suffering. They don't care. Maybe they don't even know, and like I said before, if they do know, they don't care. We're the one that's suffering from this. And if we do that, if we'll release our grasp and allow God to do what only God knows best and how God knows to do within their lives, He can do what we could never hope to accomplish in their life. So the only one you're hurting is yourself. It's kind of like, when we're in this denial sort of a thing about, well, I don't have any unforgiveness or whatever the case might be. It's like the man who walked into the blacksmith shop. I think most of you are old enough to know what a blacksmith shop is. And he was forging horseshoes, and a guy walked in there. He saw a horseshoe laying on the floor and on the ground there, and he picked it up and dropped it real fast because it was hot. And the blacksmith said, "Hot, ain't it?" "Nah, just doesn't take me long to look at a horseshoe." Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I didn't hurt. Yeah. Them blisters on my finger, oh, where they came from, you know. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Okay. So why is it important then to let God do the avenging? Because God is the only one who knows how to rescue you from the hurtful people and situations in your life, while at the same time holding those other people accountable for the things that they have done to you. Write this down. You might want to look it up later. 2 Peter 2:9 tells us that. Tells us directly that God knows how to hold those in His hand and to do to them what they deserve while holding you up and keeping you safe as we surrender our lives to Him and surrender our right to hurt back. Okay. One last thing, and we're going to have to quit here, and we'll pick this up next week, but there's a verse that I want to kind of look at a little more in a little more detail next week. It's John chapter 20 and verse 23. It says, "If you forgive the sins of any, their sins have been forgiven them. If you retain the sins of any, they have been retained." Now, just to give you kind of maybe just a little bit of a taste or whatever, is that what he's talking about there is the fact that when we hold on to the sins of others, that we are the prisoner. We are the prisoner, not them. So, the definition, surrendering or giving up my right to hurt back does not deny that you have a right to be hurt, and a right to hurt them back as bad as they've hurt you. But you know what? You'll be the one to be hurt, not them. Allow God to do what He does best. God's awesome. And He will avenge you. Why? Because He loves you. Come on. Lord bless you all. Amen.